again?
Sonthofen, Sonthofen, Sonthofen.
That's where you were in
Bavaria. That was the unit station. It was very near Salzburg, was in Austria, close to Swiss border. And the one other thing I just want to mention, because I like this story so much, this French guy who was who was in the French army, which wasn't so good, he decided to get out of the French army by coming to this alien enlistment program, which he did. However, as a good son, before he was going to be shipped to the United States, he went to visit his family, and of course there he got arrested for, what do you call
Desertion?
it? What?
Desertion?
It's desertion, and put in prison, but then he got himself out, so he came back to our camp and he got arrested for being absent with AWOL, absent without leave. Okay, anyhow, financially we stood very well because these fellows would get rations, and I think it was 2 cartons of cigarettes a week that we bought for $1 a carton, which were 10 packs of cigarettes, because they were without any federal tax. You bought it in PX. And then, so they would give us their cards. We bought using their coupons to buy the cigarettes, and cigarettes were very expensive in Germany, particularly American cigarettes. So we had lots of money. Anyhow, before we would ship the first bunch of these guys, we got their uniforms tailored, and they were not only marching well, but they looked very well. And there was a group of congressmen that met them in New York City Harbor, and they were very impressed. And of course, the commanding general liked it. So when he heard about it, they promoted Colonel Piper, who was in charge of our program, to the chief of assignments for the European Command. And Colonel Piper went to Heidelberg, and we stayed there. A few months later, probably 2 or 3 months later, he came to visit us. And by the way, he really helped me, because when he talked to me, he was not a usual colonel. He was a nice guy. And he was asking me about the parents and how I survived the war and everything, and also found out that about my parents and my father. And he says, you know what, soldier, you have to claim your parents as your dependents. This way I was able, I was getting paid, I think, $150 a month or something. $60 I would put it for my for my parents' support, and the government would add $100, and that went to my parents, and they would keep $100, give me $60 back. So that was important, because my father was after a stroke, and when they left Poland, they lost everything. So that made it much easier for them to have some spending money of their own. Anyhow, he says, when he came back to visit us 2 or 3 months later, I said, you know, Colonel Piper, it doesn't make much sense now. You are in Heidelberg, I am here, but my parents are in France. What can I do about it? He says, you know, I'm now in charge of assignments. Why don't you write a letter requesting the transfer for compassionate reasons? So, in the military, when you want to write to the higher command, you have to go through every command between you and to whom you're writing in a higher command. So there were about 6 in turn, as you would put, that it had to go from detachment to division, from division to corps, from corps to German troops from German area to European command. And about 6 weeks later, it came back in turn the other way, and it says, request denied because compassionate transfer can be only made for a spouse, but no other family member. So I tried, I gave up. About a week later, the telegram comes and says, Corporal Fight transferred immediately to Paris. So I went to Paris, and I was, again, the unit at that time, we were, I forget the number, it was again a detachment that reported directly to European Command, and our mission was logistic support for U.S. Section of the command, NATO command or something like that. Yeah, and when we came, there was and I came in and I was assigned to the mailroom because they didn't know what to do with me because they didn't need me. But I got permission to stay at my sister's house, and
That's when Sasha lived by
on Rue Saint-Denis.
by the Pompidou, right?
Yeah, well, that time Pompidou didn't exist.
I know, but that was the area.
That was
Like Chartres.
the first arrondissement near Châtelet. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they put me into the mailroom, and there was this sergeant, woman sergeant, wax sergeant. She was very upset with, she didn't know that she was upset with me, but she had a habit of putting rubber bands on pencils, and I found that out, so I would take those rubber bands, and she was getting very upset. She had few very fiery speeches about that somebody is taking this over. And